Hello everybody. Hello. Welcome to another Q&A. This is your favorite host of all time, Erick Landon RPG. What are your thoughts on Final Fantasy IV, the after years? It exists. It isn't bad. It's good, but it's like if they were going to make a direct sequel to Final Fantasy IV, they should have released like a brand new sequel or like a proper sequel, you know, like Final Fantasy IV 2, something like that. But yeah, that little sequel that had on the PSP version, that's on the PSP version if I'm not mistaken. It's okay, it's good, you know, it's fun, but it's nothing special, to be honest. You need to be like a really die-hard fan of Final Fantasy IV to properly enjoy it. And I've actually seen die-hard Final Fantasy IV fans complaining about it. It isn't bad. I don't think it's bad. I think it's good, you know, but it's just... It's like, it's there, it exists, it's okay. Did you ever play the Neo series? No, never. Once, as soon as I heard they were like Souls-like games, I was like, nah. Anyway, Visions of Mana, I haven't watched the trailer, but I'm very happy to see that the Mana series has made a comeback. It's good because we all thought the series was dead, and then it revived with the remake, Trials of Mana. Sometimes I think sometimes remakes and remasters aren't enough to resurrect a series. Like, talking about the What the Hell Happened To series that I did, some things have changed. I mean, there was Valkyrie Profile in there, and some people will say, well, the Valkyrie Profile series came back. There was a game last year called Valkyrie Elysium, but that's its own thing, you know, it's not really a Valkyrie Profile game. It's like when the Shining Force series died, which is also featured in the video. The series died, and then Sega tried to revive it, but by rebooting it over and over and over again. Shining Soul didn't work. Shining Force, Neo and Exa didn't fucking work. Shining this and that didn't work. Shining Tears didn't work. Shining Resonance Refrain didn't work. Are people at Sega really that fucking stupid, man? But I digress. So the point is that there were a lot of series that back then I covered in that series, in that video series, that died back then, and then something happened afterwards, like a mobile game. And it was like, man, is this really a revival of the series? Like Ark the Lad released a mobile game a few years ago, Wild Arms, and it was like, man, nobody cares about this shit. Give us a proper title for fucking consoles, right? But most of the developers in the series, in those videos, haven't really come back. Some of them did. Grandia did with remasters, but that's it. So my point is that we all thought that the Mana series was kind of dead. They came back 3 years ago with a remaster of Trials of Mana, the remake, I mean, and it was like, okay, it's a remake, what about a brand new game? And there was a brand new game for fucking phones, like nobody gave a shit about. So I'm happy that finally Square Enix was like, okay, people want a console game, a main title, and a proper title, and that's what's gonna happen. Thank you very fucking much, Square Enix. But I haven't watched the trailers. I did not watch the Shame Awards. I do not give a rat's ass about that fucking politicized, political crap show that's a bunch of fucking hypocrites. And I don't give a shit, man, about the Game Awards. So obviously I didn't watch a trailer, but I'll watch it probably after the stream is over. Am I excited? Yes, I am. I'm not the biggest Mana fan. But yeah, I'm excited to see one of the many dead JRPG series make a proper comeback. Imagine a brand new Valkyrie Profile, a brand new Grow Lancer, Shadow Hearts. Okay, well, Shadow Hearts were getting Penny Blood, you know, but no, like Suikoden, with the Suikoden, with the title, the name, right? So if Mana can make it, everybody else can make it. Come on, people, come on, developers. Bring back those dead series. Bring back Breath of Fire, Grandia, Wild Arms. Damn. Have you played Dragon Force on the Sega Saturn? Yes, I did. That was a long time ago, man. And it was at my friend's house. I remember I went to his house and he had a Sega Saturn, and we played a bunch of Sega Saturn RPGs. And we played Dragon Force, and I really liked it. And he was like grumpy about it. Like, oh man, that game is so convoluted, so hard to understand. Fuck it, you know, it's just not my type of game. And I was like, Sure. Yeah. Yeah, convoluted. I was loving it. Great game, pretty influential. We no longer need to ask what's playing. It's not really a playlist, it's just a video, the compilation music video that I did a few months ago called Obscure Amazing Tracks from Obscure RPGs. And there you go. I'm just playing the video. Shining the Holy Ark, another turn-based RPG on the Sega Saturn. That was pretty good. It wasn't my type of game, my cup of tea, because it's a dungeon crawler in first person. And remember, Shining, before Final Fantasy was doing all of those experiments, the Shining series did it first. They tried to imitate with their series. They tried to imitate every single genre, every single RPG genre back then. Shining did it first. I know the world is half the world is mad with Final Fantasy because all they do is imitate other successful series and games and genres. Shining did it first. And Shining the Holy Ark was pretty good. The art style is kind of dated, but I like it. I think it's good, you know. But I never finished it because, you know, I don't have a Sega Saturn and I'm not really into dungeon crawlers in first person. Will you play the English patch of Fate Extra CCC? Probably if I have enough time. There's a couple of fan-translated RPGs that have been fan-translated recently over the past few years, like the Tales games, for example, and I haven't even touched them because I just get so busy, man. I have a huge backlog, like probably all of you. And I always gotta give priority to one, the one that I want to play the most, and two, the one that I need the most for this channel. And afterwards, I'm also streaming, I streamed like a little indie 2D action RPG called Sword of the Vagrant. And it's pretty much heavily inspired by Odin's Sphere and Muramasa and Dragon's Crown. Pretty much inspired by the Vanillaware games. And I only played it for 1 hour. Got the first mission, the first couple of missions, beat the first boss, and I really liked it. Of course, it's heavily, strongly sexualized. It's a Vanillaware ripoff, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I think it was made by a Chinese studio, but I need to look a little bit more into it to have the proper information. I'm still playing Tears of Avia. I know nobody gives a shit about that game because everybody's noticed that it's not great. It isn't bad, but it's not great. But I think most people noticed or feel like the game is kind of mediocre. And it is, you know, I'm still liking it, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna finish it. I said it was gonna be a full playthrough, but at this point I'm honestly not sure because it's starting to get kind of boring, right? So we'll see what happens. Going back to your question, Kiss, will I play the Fate Extra translation or the Tales of Destiny or Tales of Innocence on the PS Vita? Or yeah, I have a shit ton of games that I want to play in the backlog, but right now I gotta give preference to those games because I paid money for them. What about the Vagrant Story Remaster or Remake? Sure, I'm not really a fan of the game, but I thought it had like a mature story. I'm a fan of Yasumi Matsuno. That guy is an excellent story writer. And I'd love to try a remake of it because the original, I can't get into it. And I'm not going back to it, never. So, yeah, definitely a remake. A remaster, I'm not so sure. A remake will be better. We both know neither is going to happen. Will you rate Tales of Arise as one of the best Tales games you ever played? No. It's really good, but it's not one of my 5 favorites? No. It's up there in the top 10. I think it's one of the 10 best, yes, but not one of the best 5. At least not to me personally. It's not one of my 5 favorites. What JRPG you think is overly hated? You mean overly hated and it deserves it? Or overly hated and it doesn't deserve it? Because if it doesn't deserve it, I made a top 10 about that. It's called 10 JRPGs that don't deserve the hate. Check it out if you can. And then there are games that a lot of people hate, including me, okay? Like Final Fantasy X-2, for example. I think it's overly hated, but it has every reason to be hated. That's just my opinion, though. Do you think Tales of games are too long in storytelling, 40 plus hours? Not really. They do have a lot of dialogue, almost at the Trails level, but not really. I think they're fine. One of the longest Tales games is Tales of Graces, by the way. It's a game with 3 different story arcs. You first play as the characters when they're kids, but that's only like 3, 4, 5 hours, I think, maybe less. And then it jumps to them when they're teenagers, and then when they are young adults. Yeah, so the game isn't that long, especially if you just focus on the main story. But I feel like it's one of the longest Tales games I've played. Definitely did over 40 hours when I beat it. And then there's Tales of Legendia. Tales of Legendia has a main story quest, which is like 20 something hours long, but then there's the character quest, and it's not really a post game. I mean, it's just the story continues, and it's just as long, you know? So combining both arcs of Tales of Legendia, you got also probably a 40-hour long game. And you might say, that's not that long. Well, consider the fact that Tales of Legendia came out almost 20 years ago. So we're talking about kind of early PlayStation 2 RPG. Back then, 40 hours? That was fucking long. Nowadays, it's nothing, I know, but back then it was long. Okay, so Legendia is also one of the longest. Arise was kind of long. I think I did 40 hours, actually, but 40 hours for today's standards is not that long, so it's not impressive. So honestly, Graces and Legendia are the 2 longest Tales games I've ever played. Excellent games, both of them. Which OST do you like more, Suikoden 2 or Suikoden 5? Interesting question, considering I like Suikoden 5 as a game more than 2. But I think I like a little bit more the Suikoden 2 soundtrack. Miki Higashino, she's just a genius, man. Amazing composer, man. Yeah. Yeah, I love the Suikoden 5 soundtrack, but yeah, I think I like the one in the second game a little bit more. I don't get the hate at Square Enix. Besides Final Fantasy, almost everything else they do lately is really good. Octopath, Nier, Star Ocean, Ren Remix, Live Alive Remake. Yeah. Most of the hate comes from their business decisions, their political decisions, but most of them are connected to Final Fantasy. You're right. I've defended Square Enix in the past. There's a little video I did on my second channel saying that not everything is bad about Square Enix. They are supporting a lot of strategy RPGs. They're trying to revive the genre, and I love them for that. You know, not everything is bad with Square Enix. I resent the company for many things, but they've done a lot of great things too. So, yeah, it's a topic, man. That's a topic of its own, Square Enix. We can talk about the company all day. Ogre Battle 64 is a remake of Ogre Battle from SNES? No, different games, not related. In fact, Ogre Battle 64 wasn't even developed by the same guys. Developed by Quest, but the main guys like Yasumi Matsuno, which was the director and writer of the series, he left. He didn't do that game, so completely different game, man. Did you get to play Zoid's Legacy for the Game Boy Advance? Yes, I did, and mediocre game, man. It's just, it exists. It's there. I was like, I think I played for like 2 hours, and I was like, man, Have you ever played Lunar Nights on the Nintendo DS? Ooh yeah! That's a Hideo Kojima game, believe it or not. The same guy who created the Metal Gear series. And that's also a part of a series called Boktai. And it's an action RPG, exclusive to the DS. Pretty different from the Boktai games. The Boktai games only had one protagonist, and they were kind of stealthy like in Metal Gear. This one was kind of different, 2 protagonists with personalities and shit. Pretty good game, man. That's one of the better hidden gems on the Nintendo DS. Yeah, man, I hope the Shining Force series comes back. I think it's a heavily overlooked series nowadays. People knew it back in the day, but it just doesn't get as much love as it did back then. In fact, I dare say the series is kind of underrated, and it was extremely popular. But I think what happened with Shining Force is that it just got an unsurprising demise. It wasn't a surprise. because the games were released. I mean, it's a Sega original IP. The games were released for Sega consoles, exclusive to Sega consoles during the first years. So we all know what happened with the Sega consoles, right? The Sega Saturn was a failure outside of Japan. The Sega CD was a failure worldwide, pretty much. So it's a series that honestly had no future, but if Sega had the power to revive it properly and bring it back once they made their deals with other companies, with Nintendo and Xbox and whatnot, they could have done something. But the problem is that the original creators left. Camelot Software Planning. Nintendo hired them to make Mario Golf and Mario Tennis games, and then Golden Sun. So they were like, man, okay, we're done with Shining Force. So maybe Sega thought there's no one out there who can really make strategy RPGs as good as these guys did. But they should have tried, in my opinion. They still should have tried. There was no reason to create the abomination that was Shining Soul on the Game Boy Advance just as an attempt to reboot the series. That was a fucking insult, man. Damn. That's like that's what Square Enix did with Valkyrie. Valkyrie Elysium was an insult to Valkyrie Profile. Same way Shining Soul was 20 years ago for the Shining series. Like the big comeback of the Shining series, and it's fucking mediocre as fuck action RPG. That's boring and repetitive. And what the hell is this, right? No. And then they went on like that. And they did bring a strategy RPG back. It's called Shining Force Feather on the Nintendo DS. Only in Japan. That should have been localized, and people would have noticed that Shining Force made an attempt to come back to tactical combat. But yeah, really, if the rumors are true, I mean, Sega is bringing back all the IPs, reviving classics. Shining Force and Phantasy Star are like two of the biggest fucking classics they need to revive. Remasters, remakes, whatever, whatever. Please bring it back, but bring it back in its purity. Don't change it to freaking action AAA games, no. Just bring strategy RPGs back and bring Phantasy Star turn-based again back. Even if it's just remasters. I mean, Phantasy Star did get a shit ton of remasters back then. It got some remasters on the Sega Saturn and on the PlayStation 2. We never got those versions. We got on the Game Boy Advance version. We got that one, but only the first three. So yeah, I mean, those two series are extremely iconic for Sega. So if they're bringing back things like Golden Axe, you bet your ass I like to believe and hope that they're gonna bring back Shining Force and Phantasy Star. I mean, we need them, man. Anyway, I start to notice Atlus is starting to hire mediocre bad voice actors for their games. Persona 3 Reload's English voice actors sound worse than the original. What? What did you say? Wait a fucking minute. They changed the actors for the remake? I thought for sure the same actors will be back. Are you telling me Liam O'Brien is not gonna be Akihiko? Are you telling me Michelle Ruff is not gonna play Yukari? You telling me Tara fucking Platt is not gonna voice Mitsuru? Karen Strassman is not gonna be Aigis? I didn't know this, man. They changed the English actors? Oh no. Fuck. You just broke my fucking heart, man. I really liked the original cast in that game. And they changed it? Oh my god. No. No, man. Fuck. What sad news. I didn't know that. Fuck. Wow. My expectations just dropped. I am no longer anticipating that remake. I am still anticipating it, but not that much anymore. Man, that's sad. Different voice actors, I mean, damn. So who's playing who now? The main English voice cast from previous games has been entirely recast for Reload, including the protagonist. So it's not gonna be Yuri Lowenthal. So the protagonist is now Alex Lee, whoever the fuck that is. Allegra Clark, Mitsuru. Heather Gonzalez, Yukari. Zeno Robinson, Junpei. Dawn Bennett as Aegis. Alejandro Sab for Akihiko. Alejandro Sab, I think I know who that is. He's not bad. Susie Young, Fuka Yamagishi. Oh man. Well, at least Patrick Seitz is there. Fuck, man. What about an option to retain the original voice cast? Are they gonna let us like choose the original cast? They kind of did something similar with Star Ocean, the second story. Not in English though, in Japanese. You could choose between the original Japanese voice actors and the new ones. Alright, so maybe they'll do the same? Thank you, Siondari. You're right, better to find out like this than while playing the game. Oh man. You know, I'm not gonna get a review code, and I'm not gonna pay $100 for the game, because that's how much it's gonna cost here in Mexico. So, fuck it. Fuck it, man.